Hi everyone, it's Kute here, sending you love wherever you are in this moment. Wow, can you believe that another year is coming to completion? Time flies, time waits for no one. You know, it's a reminder that life gives no refunds, we have no time to waste, so we better go with it. And I think it's also a reminder that, you know, sometimes we deal with challenging people in our lives, and sometimes dealing with challenging people that can sometimes be impossible people that we might aka otherwise known as, or otherwise we call jerks, assholes, crazy people, mean people, right? Have you ever had people in your life that you thought, that person is such a jerk, they're so mean, they're impossible, that I think we can often give so much of our energy to these people. Maybe it's your landlord, maybe it's your crazy boss, maybe it's that family member. They just drive you crazy and they just know how to get under your skin, right? There's always that person or that archetype or that type of person that they know the exact button to push, right? That just how do they have the manual to my emotional happiness or to my emotional misery? But somehow they just know, boop, and we're off. Right? So, you know, so often we give so much of our energy to these people. We think about them, we gossip about them, we were upset at them. But I think it's important to know that ultimately, there are no impossible people. There are no impossible people. There are no assholes, jerks, mean people. There are only people that in a given moment are not in touch with themselves. There are only people in a given moment are not connected to themselves, and as a result of how they're being with you really reflects more about how they're being with themselves in that moment. So when you see an impossible person, when you see a mean person, someone you might call a jerk, just recognize that's your moment to, number one, not take it personally. But that's also your moment, because you can take it personally, make it about you, but it's really not about you. They're just reflecting more about themselves than really about who you are. They must just imagine, number one, they must be in a tremendous amount of pain and suffering themselves in order to show up with you that way. But if you take it personally and you make it about you and they're being mean to you, and chances are it ain't anything to do with you. It ain't personal. So when you're able to remove yourself from the situation and detach yourself from that person, and you end up taking your power back, you begin to realize another thing. You know, we often want to be spiritual and we go do yoga, right? And some of you listening to this are probably really into yoga. Some of you might be certified yoga teachers, you know, Reiki practitioners, reading the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, Lao Tzu, Confucius, you know, the Art of Peace. I mean, whatever it is, you know, the Dalai Lama, you meditate, you chant, you go to Buddhist temple. And we have this aspiration to be spiritual, to be enlightened, to study Zen. But I believe that's great and it's wonderful. But the people that seem the most impossible, the people that seem the most challenging and difficult in your life are really angels sent to you in disguise. In fact, those people that are the most impossible people in your life are your own soul's response to, they are your soul's response to the prayer in your heart to grow and evolve. They are your soul's response to know God even more deeply. They are your soul's response, giving you, amazing friends, giving you the opportunity to live your spirituality, to live your knowledge, to live the Bible, to live the wisdom of the Buddha, to live the compassion of the Dalai Lama, to live your meditation, because anyone can be spiritual and loving when we get what we want. Anyone can be spiritual and loving when people give us what we want. Anyone can be spiritual and loving in the Himalayas, you know, on the yoga mat. But the real question is, can you live your love? Can you live your love in the midst of the marketplace? Can you live your love when you are being attacked, when people are being mean to you? Can you live your love even in those moments? that's when it counts. So I believe that those people that are seemingly impossible give you the greatest opportunity to put your spirituality in practice. They are in fact your greatest spiritual teachers. They are your greatest gifts. And rather than reacting to them, rather than screaming at them, rather than attacking them, I invite you to bow to them inside yourself. Maybe you don't have to do it in person, but to bow to them inside of yourself, recognizing they are the ones that will take you deeper. They are the ones that will cause you to ask yourself, what is this reflecting to me about myself? They are the ones that will cause you to ask yourself, why do I keep attracting this type of situation, this type of person, this type of boss, this type of roommate, this type of situation into my life over and over and over and over again, and to hopefully do some self-reflection and take responsibility as a result. They are the ones that will accelerate and quicken your spiritual growth. And now I'm not saying the people that love you and are kind to you won't. But it's often through challenge, it's often through adversity, it's often through those petty tyrants in your life that you are forced to set boundaries, you're forced to question, you're forced to elevate your consciousness, and most importantly, you are forced to practice loving. In that moment when you are faced with challenge, in that moment when you're faced with that impossible person who is being mean, who doesn't care, who's talking, who's gossiping about you, who's being impossible with you, you have a glorious opportunity to live your love, to live your spirituality. That's the moment, amazing friends, that you actually get to build the muscle through some resistance. I mean, you don't go to yoga class and sit in yoga class and just lie down for 2 hours and go, oh, I'm in Savasana, I'm doing yoga. I mean, you might do Savasana for like a minute or two, but not for 2 hours. So, as a human being, you are born into this existence to grow, to evolve, to find out more of who you really are. Every single person, even those you hate, even those that challenge you the most, are giving you the opportunity. Shift your perspective, right? So they are giving you the opportunity to become your highest self. If they're not being how they are, how would you truly get to transcend and be your highest self? Look at Mandela. How would Mandela have truly reached that level of consciousness, of compassion, where he was able to come out of prison 26 plus years and be in compassion? That's part of what made him great. What made him great wasn't everyone was nice to him all the time and they fed him grapes and, rubbed his feet. And no, his so-called enemies, persecuted him. They put him in prison, and he was able to not allow the prison to define him, to not allow the prison to limit his own response and freedom. When you give your power away to people that are mean to you, and when you then move yourself to that level, whoa, they did that, so I'm going to do that. An eye for an eye. I'm going to show them. Guess what? In that moment, they own you. You are not free. They own you in that moment. You are not free in that moment when you retaliate and when you go down to their level and you start attacking back. And you'll find that when you attack back, because they did something, they said something, well, they were a certain way. Why should I take the higher road? Why should I be a certain way? Because this is the path you're on, because this is what you are committed to. It's easy to worship Jesus, to worship Buddha, to worship Bruce Lee, to worship the Dalai Lama, but you know what? It's time that we stop worshiping these great ones, and you and I, that we take on the call to action, the challenge to live the Dalai Lama, to live Jesus, to live Buddha, to live the compassion of Mother Teresa. And they were just examples of human beings like you and I. I believe any human being that access love, they provide us the invitation. They provide us the reflection. And if it was possible for them, it was possible for you and I. Just because someone is mean to you doesn't mean you have to stoop to that level. See, I believe that love is not just an emotion. Love is not just a fleeting feeling. Love is not just a nice concept or quote on the wall. Love, amazing friends, to be loving is not just some woo-woo, flowy thing where it's soft. People say, oh, love is soft. Love is not soft. Love is fierce. Love is meeting the moment however is necessary in a way that best serves the person and the moment. And love is a choice. Love is a choice, not something that just happens to you, but you see, you are love. It's your nature to love. But based on life and the challenges and the distractions, we sometimes forget what we are. We sometimes forget that in any given moment, you, me, we have access to that profound power, moment to moment to moment to moment. So in a moment when someone is being mean to you, someone's being an asshole, someone's being a jerk, someone is not being fair to you, you can let that person have power over you and determine how you are going to show up, to determine your level of loving, to determine how you are going to be. Or you can say, no, I'm in control. I have the power. I am bigger than this situation. My commitment to loving is bigger than the smallness of this person's meanness. And when you meet the situation, and when you meet that person who is at a certain level of consciousness, with a higher level of consciousness, you free yourself, and hopefully in doing so, you begin to perhaps elevate that person to meet you at that higher level of consciousness. I remember a quick story of Gandhi, a man of peace, non-violence, when they kept putting him in prison. One day he was in prison, in jail, by the same general who kept putting him in prison, and rather than being angry and mean and retaliating and cursing him back and just meeting that guy at the same level, he asked for some materials. In jail, Gandhi made sandals. When he came out of jail, of prison, he went to the warden who put him in prison, and he said, before I leave, I made these for you. Boom, right there. You can respond and meet any moment, any situation, any person with love. Sometimes love is fierce. Sometimes love will have to shake someone. Sometimes love may have to scream. But so long as you are coming from love, so long as you are connected to your heart, connected to yourself, and you allow the force of love to meet you, to move through you, you will always say the right thing at the right time, at the right place. Amazing friends, realize this. You are not at the effect of those in your life. Those in your life that you might consider impossible people, that some of you might even consider your enemies, are not really your enemies. They just at this point, don't know how much they love you yet, because they haven't necessarily fallen in love with themselves yet. So how can they truly fall in love with you yet? So you have because you are someone that is on a spiritual path, to a degree, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility, rather than meeting an eye for an eye, you have a responsibility to take the higher path. And when you take the higher path, you shift your frequency, and you also invite those around you. In that moment of responding with love, in that moment of responding with compassion, you do your part on the planet. You do your part on the planet to raise the consciousness of every single human being, to raise the consciousness of that so-called impossible person. And even though it may not make a difference in that moment, even though it may not change them in that moment, it plants a seed. And it plants another seed. And it plants another seed. And they go, and it plants another seed. And maybe 10 years from now, they come around. Maybe 50 years from now, they come around. If you're from the Hindu tradition or the Buddhist tradition, maybe next lifetime they come around. But you planted a seed and you played a part. By showing up as love, you get to play a part in that person's evolution. There are no impossible people. There are no mean people, even though it might appear that way. They are simply your opportunities to love bigger. Will you love big? Amazing friends. When you love big, you always win. You can never lose. And when you love, you set yourself free. If you enjoyed this video blog, I want you to share it with your friends. Subscribe to my blog. Subscribe to my channel. You'll receive amazing free gifts. Sending you love wherever you are right now. Love now.